You've never seen letters of the Hebrew alphabet before.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying that somebody's calling you, and you might want to pick up the phone.
I think I need help with this stuff. Do you know anybody I could call?
Hi, Robert Cohen?
Yes.
It's Rabbi Katz.
Hi.
How you doing?
Well, what does that mean?
Well, that's the Ark, and those doors have a text on them that say, "It is a tree of life to those who hold it fast." Above that are the 2 tablets of the 10 Commandments, and hanging above that is the eternal light. So these are some powerful symbols in Jewish tradition.
I think we need to talk.
Come on back to my office.
Well, look, I have Jewish ancestry in my family, but we've never been observant by any means. And well, I've never even been in a synagogue before. And
Are you searching for your faith?
I think my faith is searching for me. But where do we stand on the whole hearing from God thing?
Well, modern Judaism doesn't believe that people necessarily hear from God, although in the Bible that happened. It's called the Age of the Prophets, and they certainly heard from God, and certainly Moses and Abraham and all of the ancestors heard from God. But the rabbis have taught us that the age of prophecy is over, and no one really hears from God anymore. But we certainly experience God, and we experience godliness.
So, I'm having dreams. I went to go see a dream counselor.
Was it Angela Martin?
Well, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Hey, is she kind of...
Nutty, like a fruitcake?
Yeah.
I mean, how to be a dream interpreter here in our small town, of course she would be considered nutty. But let me tell you something about Angela. She's an expert in terms of symbols and in ancient Near Eastern religions and in ancient Near Eastern language and so forth. So she's really quite an authority on these kinds of things. But yeah, she's a bit of a nut.
I don't know. She tells me one of the shapes I'm seeing means listen. It looks like a W, kind of.
Oh, well, that's the letter Shin. And the word listen, it was called the Shema. And the Shema is a word that comes from the Hebrew Bible, from the Torah, and it means listen. And it's from the text that says, "Listen, Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." It's one of the most powerful words in all of Jewish tradition because it's the name of the prayer that we recite every single day, which proclaims God's oneness. So it's a very powerful symbol, a very powerful word.
How does a non-believer all of a sudden start believing that God exists?
Well, there are a lot of ways for us to experience God. So the idea that God does or doesn't exist, that's an old question. And a lot of people throughout history have tried to answer that question. I'm much more interested in the question of how do we experience God and godliness. One of the great things about Judaism is we don't have a central dogma. I mean, different people can experience God in different ways. We've got some people who believe that God exists by their experience in nature. Some people who believe that God exists by their interpersonal relationships. Some people would say that they experience God through mystical revelations. Some people would say that they experience God the same way that people did back in the Bible, through experiencing God through divine reward and punishment. That's not very popular among modern Jewish people, but God comes to us in many different ways, and all of those are within the bounds of Jewish belief. So I can't tell you how to experience that God does or doesn't exist. My bigger question to you is really, how do we experience God's presence? It could be through a person giving us care at a hospital. We experience God's closeness that way. It could be through a family member. It could be through an experience in nature. It could be through communal prayer. It could be through song, through art. There are a lot of different ways to experience a higher connection to God and to godliness. Just out of curiosity, what do you do?
I teach astronomy.
So you teach astronomy? Well, a lot of people would often say, and trying to explain God, they would say, look, the stars are still shining during the daytime, you just can't see them. Right? So there are things that exist in the world beyond our ability to see them or to experience them. Right? The stars are there all the time. Just because we don't see them doesn't mean that they're not there. I would never impose a belief on you. Right? If you don't believe, then you don't believe. But a lot of people, when they're asked, do they believe in God, you can either flatly say yes or flatly say no. For me, God certainly exists because I experience God in all of those different moments.
So where do I go from here?
Well, I'm really curious about your dream, especially with the fact that there's the Shema in your dream and this other word, to listen and to behold. I mean, are there things that are nagging at you that are unresolved business? Not really that God is speaking to you, but the question I'm more interested in is, what are you being called to discover?